With me now, criminal defense attorneys John Manuelian and Diana Eisman, who is also a prosecutor. Welcome to both of you. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for joining me.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's talk about Officer Darren Wilson, right? And you hear his attorneys saying, you know, it's not if, but when he leaves Ferguson police, and also just sort of this impossibility, perhaps, of him ever becoming a police officer. I mean, Diana, first to you. What city would hire him, knowing it wouldn't only just be his own life, but potentially putting fellow officers' lives at risk?
That's exactly right, and that's why he won't be hired in any major metropolitan area. Unfortunately, he's created a situation for himself where he is a target. He's got a bounty, and these protests are happening all over the country. You know,
you think
Los
he could
Angeles
go to a small town?
I don't think so. I think that no matter what, he's become such a public figure now, and it's so dangerous not only for him, but any officer that he's involved with, that it's just not safe for him. It's not safe for him to have a career in law enforcement if he's going to be on patrol.
All right, so forget law enforcement on patrol, John. I mean, in your experience, when you have someone who's either, you know, acquitted, cleared of wrongdoing, not indicted in this case from a grand jury, how often do you see him or her, you know, eventually easing back into the life they once knew? A, is it possible? B, how long does it really take?
Well, from a layperson's perspective, if you're convicted of a crime or acquitted of a crime, I should say, there is a chance that you could go back and find a job somewhere in the private sector. The problem is Officer Wilson is in the public sector, the government sector, and that's going to require background checks, and it's going to require other things such as safety issues. Is this guy going to be in harm's way? I think Diana's right. He should not be a police officer. He should look into some sort of other area of practice, or maybe some sort of other governmental area. But in this case, I think it would be best to see that Officer Wilson's career is now officially over.
I believe one of his reporters was telling Don last night, you know, if he goes on to be a police officer, I think his first assignment will be called to a dark alley where he will be executed. That's what his attorneys are telling him. Just talk about shock, a reality check. Let me share some reporting. This is from the Associated Press, and so this is what they have as far as how some of the grand jury witnesses changed their stories. One witness admitting to mental disorder and that she, quote, has trouble distinguishing the truth from other things she has read online. That's one witness. Another witness, according to the Associated Press, told the FBI he saw Brown get shot in the back, but then he later admitted to the grand jury he actually hadn't seen that part of the shooting at all. You know, we have heard this week, in the wake of this decision from the grand jury, New York Mayor, former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, you know, strong words saying these witnesses, in altering their stories, should be prosecuted for perjury. Diana, do you agree?
I think that perjury requires an intent element that they're going to have trouble proving here. Obviously, it was a very emotional situation. It was probably pretty traumatic for the people that witnessed it. And so maybe they thought they saw something, or they believed something that they saw was true, but they are genuinely confusing their memories with something that they may have heard later that diluted that memory.
And then, John, I know a lot of Wilson supporters, they're pointing their finger at Dorian Johnson, right? He was the friend. He was there. He was the eyewitness. He'd been in the convenience store. We know Dorian Johnson was the first to say that it was Brown who had his hands up, a version of the events that the grand jury apparently didn't believe. You know, Dorian Johnson he was on with Aaron Burnett the other night, and he says, my story is true. I'm telling the truth. What do you make of that?
Brooke, I've reviewed some of the grand jury transcripts. I've gone through some of what the witnesses have said, and some of the witnesses actually corroborate Dorian Johnson's testimony. But what I take issue is, why did this prosecutor allow an affirmative defense during the grand jury proceeding? It never happens. I've never heard of a prosecutor inviting a police officer to explain himself in front of the grand jury, and I think that's what Ferguson has a problem with. I think they have a problem because this officer was afforded certain due process rights that typically most people aren't entitled to, and it's the appearance of impropriety that is upsetting the community, and I think that's what I have to take issue with at this point.
Explaining himself, and a lot of critics are saying not being challenged enough. John Manuelian and Diana Eisman, thank you both very much. I appreciate both your perspectives today. Let's move along because coming up, you got it.